Hello everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. And I am here today with a boutique label Blu-ray review, which you guys know I love talking about. This time around, I think this is the first review of Vestron Video Collector's series that I've ever done. This is Extreme Prejudice from 1987, which is spine number 26. So this is one that, honestly, I knew nothing about before I pre-ordered. The cover looked interesting enough. It was a Walter Hill directed film, so I ended up pre-ordering it. I think I even mentioned in my top 5 releases that I wanted for May that this was only on the list because I already had it pre-ordered. I wasn't even that excited about it, to be frank with you, but that said, this ended up being a lot different than I was expecting it to be. This is an action film, but it's a Western as well, and it's worth talking about. So that's what we're going to do today. I'll go over my thoughts on the film, and then talk about the AV aspects of it, and then finally we'll talk about the special features on this release, and I'll let you know if I'm happy it's in my collection or not, so maybe you can decide if you want it in yours. So if you guys do have a second though before we jump into this, please hit that like button. That engagement really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into my Blu-ray review of Extreme Prejudice from Vestron Video. So I have the majority of the Vestron Video releases, but there is 11 that I'm missing right now, I think. One of them is What Dreams May Come, which is a recent release that I've not picked up yet, but I absolutely intend to. But what I would love is that I wish they would go back and re-release the first 17 titles that were super expensive when they came out. And then of course, Vestron Video, these collector series releases went away for a year, 2 years. Everyone thought they were dead. And then all of a sudden, Slither and Little Monsters were released at $12 a pop. And that's what they've been ever since. So these are just I love this price point for these. It's awesome. And what they have on here, it's actually surprisingly packed. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let's just talk about this film itself here. This one is, like I said, from 1987, directed by Walter Hill. The cast on this is incredible. Nick Nolte is in this, along with Powers Booth in the 2 leading roles. Then you have Michael Ironside kind of in the 3rd leading role as well, along with Maria Conchita Alonso in the lead female role. So we are following this Texas Ranger played by Nick Nolte, and he is basically tired of the drug problem that his local Texas town is having. And he is real close to the border. I'm totally forgetting what city they're in, but they're very close to the border of Mexico and United States. And he knows why all these drug problems are happening all of a sudden, because about 3 years ago, his ex-best friend from his school age days started bringing over drugs from Mexico. Cash is his name. That's played by Powers Booth. And so at the beginning of the movie, they have this meetup in Mexico, and it's hey, Nick Nolte tells him stop what you're doing, and Powers Booth's character, or Cash, is it's not going to happen. And he even says in there, the next time we meet, I feel like there might be a killing.
I got a feeling the next time we run into each other, we're going to have a killing.
So it is just very pulpy. It's such a Western, which I wasn't expecting at all, but it was so fun because of that. So anyway, these two are basically trying to one up each other, or essentially Nick Nolte's character, the Ranger, is trying to stop Powers Booth's character, Cash, the drug dealer. But on top of all of that, which I had no idea about because it's not mentioned on the synopsis that I read for that May releases, not mentioned in there at all. But on top of this entire thing, there is this Black Ops covert operation that is going on that is filled with these former people that were Marines or Army, I don't know what branch of the military they're in, but these former military men that are supposed to all be dead. They're all listed as deceased, and that's intentional so that they are able to do these Black Ops missions. And that team is led by the Major, who is played by Michael Ironside. And this whole story is in one of the special features, they called this, with Powers Booth and Nick Nolte, the A story, or the A plus story. And then the Black Ops story is the A story. It's not an A-B. It's very much one in the same. And I love how much screen time both of them get. It really feels like 50-50. I'm sure it's not, but that's what it feels. And so both of these stories collide, and it is fascinating. So that's not the best explanation of Extreme Prejudice, but that's the general idea of what this film is. And let me just start by saying that this was not at all what I was expecting. So as I was watching this movie, it just gave me that same feeling, that same vibe of something like Red Dawn, Well, turns out that Red Dawn was written by John Milius, who also happened to be a writer of the story, at least, of Extreme Prejudice. Now, there's 4 people credited as, like, 2 of them are writer. John Milius is one of them, and then there are a couple screenwriters as well. But, yeah, this has an amazing script, and it feels very much like something out of that era, that, Red Dawn era, that late 80s. The first thing I have to talk about is just how incredible the characters are in this, the dialogue in this. That's really what drove this movie for me. Some of the dialogue like Rip Torn plays a sheriff in this. He's like the county sheriff, I guess, and he does a lot of dealings with Nick Nolte's character as the Texas Ranger. Nick Nolte kind of looks up to that character as like a father figure. And the lines of dialogue that Rip Torn have are just incredible. There are some amazing one-liners in there that I couldn't possibly do justice if I tried to repeat.
You know, Hank, the next thing you're going to be complaining about the state legislature making women rangers. You know that.
Hell, I don't care. As long as she's 6'6", mean as a snake. State legislature. Shit, Jack! Only thing worse than a politician is a child molester.
That alone, frankly, is worth watching. And that whole, like, him being in this film is not go on all that long, but, like, when he's there, it is so effective. And because of the fact that these one-liners are brilliant, some of the dialogue in here is just so great.
You ain't gonna just walk in there, are you?
Oh, hell, I've known Chubb since the 3rd grade. You were just telling me what a nice kid he used to be.
Uh-huh.
I'm just gonna go in and have a beer with him.
Shit sounds reasonable. Just sit down and talk to him about how you shot his brother night before last.
I'm going around the back way.
Nick Nolte. So his character is like as straight and even as you could ever imagine. He is just stone-faced and shows very little emotion. Yet, there's something else going on under the surface there, and he is so much fun to watch, even though, in terms of the acting, he literally just looks at the camera and, like, talks like it's nothing. Like, he does nothing in terms of any emotion at all, but it's still there. It's there, and it works, like, perfectly. It shouldn't work at all, but it just works so well. He is such a good foil, I guess, to Cash, Powers Booth's character, because Powers Booth is like this more flamboyant, eccentric guy, whereas Nick Nolte's character, the Texas Ranger, is just straight and narrow, not going to show any emotion, and they work so well off each other. Even Rip Torn's character playing against the Nick Nolte Texas Ranger works really well because they're so opposite. There's one of the, I don't know what his title is, he's not a sheriff, one of the deputies, I think is what his title is, in the police office. And he is just so, like, he doesn't do a lot, but what he does is perfect. Like, it just helps build this relationship between these group of officers so well. Like, just the way he responds to his boss, which is, the Texas Ranger, you can tell, like, he admires him, and the way they do it is so subtle, but it's done so well. I loved that aspect of it. And that's not even to talk about this Black Ops group, which is led, like I said, by Michael Ironside, who is excellent in this. He is playing either like this, military guy who is totally stone-faced and straight, but then he has to also act like these other roles that he's trying to take on because it's a top secret mission. And so the way he plays those, I think, is so much fun and so different to what he's doing as his military character. So just, again, the juxtaposition here it works so well. The Black Ops team is awesome because you also have Clancy Brown and William Forsythe in it. Larry B. Scott is there, like, just some great actors, but William Forsythe and Clancy Brown, I think, are in particular just wonderful in their roles. They both just bring such differences to all of their characters, and it works so well here. I will mention that, just as kind of a word of warning, there definitely is some racial slurs that go on here. There's a lot of homophobic slurs that go on here. It's in a context that makes sense for the Black Ops mission, so it's not just kind of willy-nilly, I guess, but it doesn't make it good necessarily. It is something that you have to sit through. But William Forsythe's character, like, I hated the character. I hated him, who he was as a person, but he's not black and white. Like, there's also aspects of him that I really enjoyed and really loved, and I think he just plays it so perfectly. These characters are so three-dimensional, which I wasn't expecting from my late 80s action film, like, but they are so well done. And then the one female role, at least the one prominent female role, is Maria Conchita Alonso, who plays this love interest that is both the love interest of Cash, the drug dealer, and of the Texas Ranger. So she's kind of in the middle of them, and that brings a really cool dynamic to the film. On top of all of this, though, there are just some amazing action sequences. So this is done so well. There's a special feature with the director of photography, and he does an amazing job in this. Not only does it look really cool, but like the special effects are great. There are so many bullets that go off in this film, and so many gunfights and shootouts. They all feel unique, though. There's one kind of in like the first half of the film that is it's so well done. It's really, really fun to watch. But then there's the climax is just this over the top, like almost like an army, this drug cartel army going against our main characters, and it is incredible. There's so many different homages in this film to other movies. Walter Hill is very clearly a lover of cinema, and the different nods he throws in, honestly, like I didn't catch most of them because they're nods to films that I not necessarily have seen yet, like The Wild Bunch I haven't seen, but there's a lot of nods to that. St. Valentine's Day Massacre, there's a moment toward the end with Michael Ironside's character. There's a nod to that. So like not everything I picked up on, but you can feel the respect here that's being done for this genre. And yes, this is an action movie, but there are slower moments, so keep that in mind. And it really feels like a Western, which I think some of those slower moments are expected in a Western, but this is like a late 80s Western, frankly. Like that's how it felt to me. And it's done so well. The acting is just fantastic across the board. The story, the relationships that are built up with these characters are second to none. I was just so blown away by what was presented here. I was laughing at some of these lines of dialogue. I was like taken aback by some of the things that are said here. Just, I don't know. This was one of those films, like, if not for Vestron Video, I never would have watched this. And frankly, I wasn't even excited to watch this, but it was awesome. Like, I loved this movie. And if you are into Westerns, if you're into 80s action films and you want something that's a little bit under discussed, maybe a little bit underrated, like Extreme Prejudice is the way to go. So I'll leave it there because I don't want to ramble any more than I am, but like I was shocked. So I have to give Extreme Prejudice from 1987 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved this one. Okay, so let's talk the Blu-ray itself, and I'll start with the AV side of things. So in terms of the audio on this, it is a 2.0, it is a DTS HD master audio track. So unfortunately, no surround sound action going on this one, and frankly, it probably would have benefited because there are some explosions in this, and then just all the gunfire. I feel like it could have sounded really cool with a 5.1 track, but I'm sure that's just that either it was never made with that, or they didn't have access to it, whatever the case is. But what's here? Totally acceptable. There was no problems with it whatsoever. I thought the dialogue was mixed really well with the like sound effects and the music. I didn't have an issue with it at all. And sometimes when you're using a 2.0 track, sometimes that becomes an issue, but I didn't notice any issues there at all with my setup. So I really appreciated that aspect of it. And then on the video side of things, so I cannot find if this was a new transfer or not, but I have to believe that it is. It's presented in 1.85:1 presentation. Obviously it's on Blu-ray, so it's 1080p. But from reading previous reviews of releases on this from their DVD releases, basically everything I've read about it was that the transfer was terrible on the old DVD releases. Now I can't say that because I can't say that from personal experience, but just from what I've read from some reviews of previous DVD releases. So this I thought looked excellent. There was nothing like super noticeable that stood out to me as being negative in this transfer. I thought, the open views, what am I trying to say? Like the landscapes, it's a desert setting most of the time here, the mountain setting. It looked awesome on Blu-ray. No complaints there at all. The explosions really popped off the screen. I thought it looked great. So while we're not talking a 4K release here with HDR, I still think this Blu-ray is probably the best this film has ever looked. Again, basing that on the other reviews I've read of previous releases of this. So if this is a movie you already love, then frankly, there's no reason not to grab this one. So I have to give the audio and visual quality on this one 4 out of 5 stars. Nothing to really complain about here. Before I wrap it up, I do want to talk about the special features on this Vestron release because honestly, it's pretty loaded. So I always mention it, but there is an audio commentary here. I don't do audio commentaries typically, but this is one I'm actually interested in because it is with the film historians C. Courtney Joyner and Henry Park. Now, the reason I am interested in this one is because C. Courtney Joyner is a name I'm familiar with thanks to my time watching Serial at Midnight here on YouTube. Heath is friends with C. Courtney Joyner, and I believe that Joyner has been on a couple videos with him discussing various things with him. And so that's one I'm definitely going to check out at some point. And then there's an isolated score selection. I didn't go through that one, but what I went through with the meat and potatoes of this, frankly, are the interviews. They have almost an hour long interview with the director, Walter Hill, and he's excellent in this. Like, his love for Sam Peckinpah comes through in that interview so wonderfully. It's great to see. He doesn't just talk Extreme Prejudice, of course. He talks much more than that, and I think that was just so fun to watch. And then there's an interview. It's called The Major's Agenda, which is an interview with Michael Ironside, who is just an amazing personality. And then there's also an interview with Clancy Brown, which is great as well. He tells these really funny stories about Ironside and just how Ironside is really one of the best people in Hollywood, like one of the sweetest guys in Hollywood. And that really comes through in his interview, the interview with Ironside. Like, he's just enjoyable. He's funny to watch. He's charismatic. Like, he's just engaging to watch. I love these interviews. And then the last one is a 15-minute interview with the director of photography, who's named Matthew F. Leonetti, who has done an insane amount of movies, tons that you've seen before. I guarantee it. But that was really interesting as well. I love when we get to see things from either the cinematographer, which is in this case, whatever you want to call him, cinematographer, director of photography. Is that the exact same thing? Probably. But I love when those interviews are on there, because that aspect of like the behind the scenes always interests me the most. So that was excellent as well. There's this vintage EPK is what it's called. I don't know what it stands for, but what it felt like was something that like maybe they would send an old, like a video store to kind of, entice them to buy their movie that they could put out for rent. I don't know if that's what it is, but it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. Then there is a still gallery, a theatrical trailer, and teaser trailers on this. So, I mean, like, this thing is loaded for what it is. And this is a $12 release, which is remarkable. So yeah, definitely great special features. I always say I don't really rate the special features because I've not watched all of them. I don't feel right rating them, but I really enjoyed what I watched here, which was the bulk of them. It's a really good release in terms of the special features. All right, so wrapping up my thoughts on Extreme Prejudice, this Blu-ray is one I am so happy that Vestron Video released, because I never would have watched this movie. I'd never even heard of it before Vestron announced that they were releasing it. That mixed with a really good audio-visual presentation and some awesome special features that were absolutely worth my time. This is one I am so happy I have in my collection now. So I am going to give the Vestron Video release of Extreme Prejudice 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so those were my thoughts on Extreme Prejudice, but I want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. Is this one that you picked up? If it is, did you love it? Did you hate it? Have you already seen it before and you knew you wanted it? I can't recommend it enough, especially if you're already a fan of it. I think it's definitely worth the low price of $12 that they're asking. So definitely let me know what your thoughts were down in the comments below. And this one did come with a digital release, so let's do a digital code giveaway for this film as well. And I cannot recommend this one enough. So if you haven't seen this and you don't want to, put out the $12 for it right now, enter the digital code contest down below. Be entered for a chance to win. So the question I'm going to ask you guys this time is, what is your favorite 80s action film? It can be a Westerner, it could be a straight action film. I don't care. Just what's your favorite 80s action film? Let me know that down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you hit that like button, and that will get you entered in to win the digital code of Extreme Prejudice, which I'm assuming will, I don't even know how this redeems, but I'm assuming it's going to be in 1080p. So yeah, enter down below. Tell me your favorite 80s action film. Be subscribed to the channel and make sure you hit that like button, and that will get you entered in. And I will draw a winner. I'll put the date that this expires right here, because it should be about 2 weeks from the day this video goes live. But that is going to do it for today, guys. If you did enjoy this one, please hit that like button. That engagement really does help me out. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies. I talk all things media, be it books, movies, video games, graphic novels, manga. If it's media related, I'm interested in it. And if you are too, you might consider subscribing. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching. And I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.